Hello, Macaulay. Some of you I have already met through our Zoom platform when I've had office hours. Some of you I've had yet to meet. So I just want to log in here today. I want to welcome you all. I want you to see my face. And I really wanted an opportunity to talk to you about paper number 1. As I sat down to write a global comment after reading some of your paper plans, I realized that so much gets lost in the written word. And so I would prefer to just talk to you, to share a little bit more about where this paper is coming from. I was able to do that on my Zoom office hour this week with a couple of people who did show up. I think it was really helpful. So for those of you who have not yet shown up to an office hour, I want to encourage you to do so, especially weeks when we are working on papers and we have papers due. It's just a good time for us to talk, for you to ask questions. There's certainly something that gets lost in text, whether it's reading, you just miss out on information. And of course, we don't have that opportunity to expand on things the same way, because let's be honest, as a reader, people lose interest. And even if you are a super careful reader, sometimes things just get lost in translation. So here I am. Let me explain. So the first thing I want to talk about is what the narrative paper is and what it is asking you to do. So the narrative paper is a paper that uses story-like details to share a point. So it has a thesis. Every paper has a thesis. That is the purpose of the paper. But what I'm noticing as I'm reading through a lot of what you're writing, your thesis is broad, and it's about education in general. It's not grounded in your experience. And what I want to make you a little bit more aware of is that this is a paper that focuses on your personal experience. It actually asks you to consider a specific event in your life. When you had some type of educational awareness, experience. Some of the people who were on the office hours shared specific moments about their first failure. In the discussion from the week on Shepherd, where we were talking about the problem of grade inflation and how when you do well in everything, students don't really know what their strengths and weaknesses are, which is one of the things that grades should do. And so I shared a really personal story about when I got an 86 on a genetics quiz. And actually it was a test. It was an 86, it was biology, it was freshman year. It was a genetics test. And my teacher took me aside and said that I was not my sister. My sister was brilliant. And she happened to be very, very good in science. She went on to go to Yale and then Harvard Medical, very smart in science. I was more of your artsy gal who did all the theater, all of that kind of stuff, loved English, loved writing. And so my initial reaction, because I was at a high pressure school, my initial reaction was to cry. I actually had theater practice that day. And I remember going into our changing rooms, finding like a remote spot on the floor and just bawling my eyes out. And I remember friends walking over to me and saying things like, "It's okay, you're not your sister." And that was really hard for me. But it also helped me to come to terms with, no, I'm not my sister. I'm not great at science. And that's just not who I am. And I'm okay with an 86. It doesn't define me. I'm a rock star when it comes to English. I'm great on stage. There are other things that I'm gonna put my energy towards and I'm gonna pursue because that's what I love, that's what I'm passionate about, that's what I'm good at, and I don't have to be good at everything. And so that moment in time helped me to rethink my relationship to grades and what they meant to me and how they defined me and what I was willing to let them be in my life. Okay, so the reason I told you that story is because I want you to notice something. When you ground your experience in a specific event, you're able to remember the details that bring it to life. I was able to tell you where I was, how I felt, what people said to me, because I focused it on a specific moment. So a narrative essay uses those specific details to ground not just your story, but to prove your point. So let's say, let me back up. If I was going to turn this into an essay, my essay's thesis would be something to the extent that my freshman year in high school helped me gain perspective on what I was good at. Okay, maybe that's my thesis. And so the rest of my paper is going to be about that experience, what I learned about it, and how it affected me going forward. What did I do differently because of this experience? How did it shape my thinking? It's all based on this experience. How did I feel about the next test? How did I prepare differently for science? Where was my stress level, right? These are all things that I would share in this essay because they were important to this specific thing. So what I want you to think about, for those of you who have given really broad thesis statements and have asked, do I need more anecdotals? I want you to take a step back and I want you to think about that specific event. And I want you to ground yourself in that event. And I want you to think about all of the things that you can remember about that event. How did you feel? We don't do a lot of literary elements here, right? They're just not appropriate. But when we're thinking about narrative details, let's think about imagery, because it's what makes it real. It what connects you to your audience and helps you illustrate your point in the best way possible. So how did you feel? What did you smell? What did you see? What did you hear? All of those things as pertaining to that event are going to help bring it to life and show its effect on you, because this is an opportunity for you to reflect on you. So let me walk you through a little bit of what this might look like as far as how a paper would unfold, because I just gave you my story. So let's think about planning it. So my thesis is that my freshman year of high school, an experience with my biology teacher changed my perspective on grades and my identity. Okay, there it is. It's personal. So now from there, I'm going to have paragraph 1. And paragraph 1 is going to maybe be about my mindset entering high school. How did I feel? What was I excited about? What did I believe about myself, right? This is personal, so I'm gonna get personal. I went to a technical high school. Quite honestly, I thought I had no business being there because I wanted nothing to do with engineering or science or math. But if I'm being honest, my sister went there and I wanted to follow in her footsteps. There had always been a little bit of competition between my sister and I. And if she could make it, I could make it. And so that's how I approached it. So I would develop that paragraph maybe around that idea. And then I would transition into my second paragraph that would highlight that very specific day. Now, that very specific day might be one paragraph about the conversation I had with my teacher and how it made me feel. It might be 2 paragraphs, the conversation I had with that teacher and how it made me feel. There might be another paragraph on my reaction to it, that part where I was hiding in the theater room, and what my friend said to me and what that made me think about, right? So right now I've already got 3 paragraphs planned out, so I've got my intro, right, where my thesis is. Then I've got the paragraph where I'm going to talk about how I felt entering high school, my previous mindset. I've got the specific event that I'm really gonna ground in the details of how I felt, what my teacher said to me, what my initial reaction was. I have the next paragraph about how that specific, event made other people comfort me, react to me, how they related to it. And then maybe I have another paragraph on how freeing that actually was. That this moment that initially was crushing to me helped me to put into perspective that I don't need to be perfect in everything. And how did that free me to let go of my self-worth as connected to grades and start caring about my passions and being me? Now, that's not a conclusion. I want you to hear that. That is another part of me explaining how that freshman year in high school and a conversation with my biology teacher changed my mindset about grades. I'm still explaining that change. The last paragraph, the conclusion, is going to wrap up all of it. It's going to walk my reader through how I started high school with this mindset, how that conversation with my teacher and my friends helped me come to this conclusion, and that it was freeing. So you're gonna wrap it all up. So what I want you to hear in this exchange, and this is why I'm on video, if you have a rather broad thesis about the education system being a factory, or something about how relationships are helpful in getting people through, I want you to narrow it down. You're gonna end up too broad. You're not gonna have enough details, and that's where the narrative essay comes in. Narrative essay, right? It's all the lens of a thesis. The thesis is what drives an essay forward. You're always gonna have that. But where it changes from expository, argumentative, narrative is how the details ground you in your thesis, right? So in a narrative essay, we use story-like details. What separates it from a story as opposed to an essay is that we have a very specific purpose, and every detail gets filtered through that lens. And if it's not relevant to helping show your point, your thesis, even if it's a cool detail in the story, it needs to get left out because it's going to be distracting. So you're gonna focus on those really specific narrative details that help show how you were affected, what your aha moment looks like, what, how you felt. If you're talking about stress levels, I wanna see it. I wanna get the visualization of you in your room, crumpling the paper, throwing it, sweating, pulling out your hair. I don't know, right? I'm just trying to think of those specific details. When you can get those specific details, it draws your reader in, and the goal is to show, not tell. You can tell your reader that you were stressed, but being able to show that you were stressed makes it that more impactful. So I hope this was helpful to you. I thought this would be more useful than me just responding individually to every paper, because I've read them, and for the most part, I think a lot of people need to rethink the specificity of your thesis and where you're going with this. And that's why the paper is broken down into so many parts, with the plan and one introduction and one page. You don't need to have a whole paper at this point. If you do, that's okay too. It's a rough draft. It's a work in progress. We're gonna keep workshopping this paper. And by the time it's due for a grade, I think you'll all be in a really great place. So please, if you need specific help, use the Please Help Me forum in discussion board. I monitor that. Your classmates should be monitoring it too. We're able to give each other feedback. The only rule about the Please Help forum, don't post a whole paper and ask for feedback. This is your place to post a portion of your paper and ask a question. That question should not be about grammar. Do not talk about commas right now. Later on, it's the very last thing we're gonna do, because after all the content is set, well, then we can worry about the way that it's said and how it's, the syntax is. Right now, there's too much that's gonna be altered. You don't even need to think that heavily about diction at this moment. We're just working through the organization and the rudimentary ideas of development, and that they're relevant and that they're specific. That's kind of where we are right now. So in that Help Please forum, post a portion of your essay and ask a question. You can ask the question of, do I have enough narrative details? Am I showing or am I telling Does this feel on topic? Does it feel unified? Am I rambling too much? Those are the questions that are helpful to ask right now. And we'd love to give you feedback on those things. So I'll be monitoring that forum. Your classmates should also be monitoring that forum. We're all in this together. And I look forward to seeing what comes of these first papers. I love these first papers because I love reading about your experience. It gives me more insight into who you are as a student, what you've been through, what you think, and as an educator too, it gives me a lot of perspective about what people's experiences have been and how I can change what I do, and how I contribute to those experiences. So I hope, again, that this was helpful. If you have questions about this video, what I'd like you to do is use the Q&A forum on Discussion Board. Again, I will monitor it, and I will be happy to answer any questions you have about this video, about this assignment. Do not panic if after watching this video, you need a little bit of a rehaul. That's okay. That is the writing process. And unfortunately, because we are in this remote setting, sometimes, like I said, it's a little bit hard to construe directions and instructions and assignments. It's a lot of information, and even the strongest readers sometimes get lost in the details, and that's okay. And that's why we have a lot of different options of how we can communicate with each other. So I hope you all are having a lovely day. I know that this is a holiday, and so you're in no way required to respond to this, but I did think it would be helpful to give you feedback. So if you wanted to spend time working on it or asking questions, you have as much time as you need. Okay. I am looking forward to seeing you all online. Bye.